Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I am your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 109 of Talking Blue. We are here today to recap the Dodgers and the Rockies series, which wrapped up last night at the time of this recording. It's currently Thursday, July 9th. Last night, July 8th, Dodgers wrapped up that series. Took 2 out of 3 from the Rockies, so they get out of their second-to-last series before the first half concludes. They get out of that with a series win. Wasn't necessarily the cleanest series. We're going to talk about all that stuff. Okay, today is actually not going to be much of a breakdown pod. Talk a lot about some players, hot stretches, cold stretches, the numbers, a lot of that stuff. I'm really going to talk a lot about the baseball aspects that took place throughout the series. There was a little bit of some sloppiness on the Dodgers end. Also some good things as well. Just a lot of those like big moments, pitch decisions, coming through in big moments, not coming through, all those little things that happened in this series. Like I said, a little bit of sloppiness. We're going to talk about all that stuff throughout each game. So as always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the videos dropping. You can follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod, and you can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. All right, so before we get into the 3 games, let's do some quick roster/injury stuff. All right, right at the top, Evan Phillips has been activated, and he did appear in this series Tuesday night, so we'll talk about him a little bit later on. Edwin Diaz. All right, he threw to hitters yesterday, July 8th, very close to going on a rehab assignment. All right, I always forget how the minor leagues works with their first half ending and all that stuff, but probably if I would have to guess, Diaz will go on a rehab assignment basically when the first half or second half begins, maybe a little bit before then, depending on the minor league schedule, but it looks like he has thrown... He has thrown to hitters a couple times, and it looks like he is very close. And we'll see how long that build-up takes, but I would imagine, sometime at the end of July, maybe early August is when we get to see Edwin Diaz. And I'll talk about him a little bit later when we talk about Evan Phillips and the makeup of this bullpen right now. Kike Hernandez is next, checking all the boxes to prepare for a rehab assignment. Again, right now with getting close to the All-Star break, it kind of makes things difficult with rehab assignments, but probably a couple weeks from returning. He actually has progressed really well from the oblique strain, which looked really, really horrible at first. Still has missed a lot of time, about a month since that happened. But it looks like he's definitely going to return in July, in the early parts of July, as opposed to like potentially August, like we could have thought when that originally happened. So I think he has like 20 days left on the 60-day IL before he can actually be activated. So that's why they might be delaying it a little bit. He probably doesn't need that much time to be down in the minor leagues to get a rehab, but he still has some time. But again, probably a couple weeks from returning, probably mid-July is when we'll see Kike activated. Will Smith, he has begun baseball activities. Hopefully he can begin a rehab assignment soon. Him and Tyler Glasnow have kind of been in the same boat of getting no really positive updates. Kind of everything is continued to be delayed. Will is obviously in a much better spot than Glasnow specifically because it's just a stiff neck. So again, I'm hopeful that it's like a similar timeline to Kike where we could see him go on a rehab assignment very soon and then like in a couple weeks be activated. And then the last guy, Blake Treinen, who we haven't talked about in a long time, he has resumed playing catch. So that's kind of the only update. Again, we'll see how that progresses, but I would imagine sometime in July he can come back. But haven't really had a ton of updates on him. And then Glasnow and Snell are kind of the same updates. Snell is throwing to hitters, probably not too long away from going out of rehab, but I'm sure he still has to check a lot of boxes in terms of facing hitters, bullpens, and all that stuff. And then Glasnow has resumed playing catch, but he's even been passed up by Snell in terms of coming back. Like Glasnow still has to get back on a mound, face hitters, go on a rehab assignment, get built up. Again, like I've said before, the longer this takes, it just progresses more and more that we won't see him in July, hopefully August, but it's like, do they even get to the point where they're just like, you know what, we want Glasnow ready to be activated September 1st, have him build up to get ready to pitch 4 to 6 innings, and then, so we'll see how that progresses, but still not much of an update with those two guys. All right, let's go ahead and get into game one. Eric Lauer takes the ball Monday night. This is against Kyle Freeland, the veteran left-hander of the Rockies, who the Dodgers usually tend to own. Rockies get on the board first in the top of the second inning. A sac fly from Ezekiel Tovar, 1-0 Rockies. We skip ahead to the third inning, bottom of the third. Shohei Ohtani, he hits his 19th home run of the year, a home run out to left field, makes it a 2-1 Dodger lead. That was a 2-run shot. Bottom of the fourth inning, an RBI single from Max Muncy makes it a 3-1 game. Right after that, a sac fly from Miguel Rojas, 4-1. And then Shohei Ohtani, an RBI ground out, makes it a 6-1 game. That was an RBI single, actually. So the Dodgers have a comfortable 6-1 lead. But the Rockies would slowly chip away in this game. So as Ezekiel Tovar, he hits his 8th home run of the year to make it a 6-2 game. And then in the 6th inning, an RBI single from Jake McCarthy cuts the deficit in half. It's now 6-3. And then this is where all the big scoring and a lot of the big points in this game took place. Top of the 9th inning, Tanner Scott is on for the save. He gives up an RBI double to Kyle Karros into right center field to make it a 6-4 game. Then with the bases loaded and 2 outs, this was Cole Carrig, who doubles into right center field. Tying runs come in. Rockies try to get the go-ahead run from first to come all the way around, but he gets thrown out at the plate. He was originally called safe. It was Hunter Goodman who was brought in as a pinch hitter, I think, and intentionally walked. Or no, he just was intentionally walked. Went to first base. He is on first base with the double. Comes all the way around. He's actually called safe. And surprisingly, the call does get overturned. We'll get to more of that in a sec. So, Rockies tie the game. Blown save for Tanner Scott. It's just his second blown save of the year. So, we go to the 10th inning. The Rockies get on the board with an RBI ground out from Jake McCarthy. He beats out a throw from Freddie Freeman to the plate. Again, I'm going to talk about all this stuff in a second. Bottom of the 10th, the Dodgers do tie the game. An RBI single for Mookie Betts. Actually, not a single, excuse me. It's ruled as a fielding error. It was a line drive up the middle that hit off the glove of Edouard Julien. Kind of a weird play. Probably should have been a single, but it also should have been an out because it was hit right at Julien. Anyways, Dodgers tie the game, but then they actually don't take the lead in that inning, or I should say win the game. So we go to the 11th inning again. Rockies don't score in the top of the 11th, so we go to the bottom. And then Dalton Rushing, he hits an RBI walk-off single. His second walk-off of the year, so that's pretty cool. His third hit of the game. Dodgers win by a score of 8-7. So they do get out of there with a win, although a little bit of a sloppy, all-over-the-place game. Obviously, Tanner Scott, the blown save. So I'm going to break down all that stuff and the extra inning stuff. Let's first talk about Eric Lauer. He was great once again. Let me give you all the pitchers that pitched. We got Eric Lauer for 6, Brock Stewart for 1, Alex Vesia for 1, Tanner Scott for 1, the blown save, and then Edgardo Henriquez for 2 innings. He pitches the 10th and the 11th, so he gets the win. So good stuff from Edgardo Henriquez. Eric Lauer, quickly, 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. He did give up the 1 home run to Tovar. But overall, a great outing once again from Eric Lauer. He continues to just eat innings. He got 10 whiffs in this game, 8 on his four-seam fastball. The four-seam fastball velocity has slowly ticked up, just slowly, averaging more closer to 91, 92. Occasionally, you'll see 93 from him. A little bit higher than what he was at with the Blue Jays. All right, he's lowered his ERA, basically a full 2 runs since joining the Dodgers. He had a 6.69 ERA with the Blue Jays, and it's down to 4.81. 3.12 ERA in his time with the Dodgers. I've documented it a lot the last couple weeks. He has pitched very good with the Dodgers. A ton more ground balls, less walks, not necessarily a lot more strikeouts, but better quality of contact is what I would say. More balls on the ground. Not as much just like getting crushed with the home runs like he was with the Blue Jays. And I honestly feel pretty confident. Like, you could pencil in 6 innings pitched when he's out there, 3 earned runs. 2 months ago when the Dodgers brought him in, I would have thought, well, probably we'll see a couple starts from him. And when a couple of these injuries, come off the board, he'll be DFA'd at some point, which is still in the realm of possibility. But he has pitched good enough to where the Dodgers are going to want to keep him around. Who knows with the Snell and Glasnow stuff? Maybe he's around all the way until like August or something, and then maybe he's just moved to the bullpen at some point. This is a guy who has seen time in the bullpen. I just think that what's going to make it difficult for Lauer is that at some point when Glasnow and Snell come back, you're going to see guys like, when we get time, postseason time, you're going to see guys like Sasaki and Robleski possibly kick to the pen, which is going to make it difficult for a guy like Lauer to do that. But he's going to stick around, and he has been very valuable for them. And, he is, sometimes when a team gets a World Series ring, obviously every player that ever played in a game that year gets the ring. So you could have played 1 inning all year, and you get a ring. And there's a lot of guys who get rings who didn't really play a role in the postseason, but they actually did play a significant role in the regular season. If the Dodgers are able to go on and win this World Series, this would be a guy that would get a ring, maybe not even see any time in the postseason, but you would be like, this guy deserved it because of all the innings he ate and, the actual quality innings that he gave us. So shout out to Eric Lauer because he has pitched well. So let's go to Tanner Scott, and I'm going to kind of break all this down from the blown save, the bench is cleared with Dalton rushing, the tag at home plate, a couple of some poor at-bats in those innings, all that stuff. So first we'll start with Scott. All right. First blown save since April 25th. That was against the Cubs, and it's just his second blown save all year. Okay, and I'll be honest, this blown save, I'm going to take the credit. This was on me, and I'll explain why. When I was watching this game, it was late at night. I was getting ready to go to sleep, got to work the next morning, all that stuff, and I was getting ready to type up my draft, my X, my post summarizing everything on my Talking Blue account, the highlights, what took place, Dodgers win, all that kind of stuff. I was typing it up as the 9th inning was beginning, which I normally don't do because I am still, I played baseball. I understand there are superstitions. Not crazy superstitious. I'm not the kind of person that's like, when my team is getting shut out, I got to like switch positions on the couch. I don't go crazy like that. But when it comes to winning, I will be honest, I am a little bit superstitious. Like, I don't start, writing into stone, the final score, Dodgers get their whatever numberth victory of the year, because it just feels like, you're just asking the baseball gods to humble you. I only really do that unless it's a blowout, unless it's like a 10-run lead and it's like, all right, obviously they're going to win. So I normally don't do that, but in this case, I was tired. I wanted to go to sleep. I wanted to hit send as soon as that final out was recorded. So I had the whole post typed up and everything. Tanner Scott's 13th save of the year, 12th of the year, whatever it was supposed to be. I had it all typed out. So that's on me. I take the blown save. It shouldn't even go on Tanner Scott's ERA because that's on me. But anyways, Scott, this is what happens when you pitch good. You get the benefit of the doubt. There wasn't a bunch of people killing Scott online. He's not getting destroyed like he was last year. And I know there's been a ton of talk. I think it was his wife who came out and said that he's even gotten death threats throughout his time with the Dodgers, which is just insane. I'm as big a Dodger fan as any, passionate, love the team. But, getting into death threats, and that's just like, you need help if you're really, sending death threats. I mean, it's a game at the end of the day. These are all a bunch of grown men that don't even know you exist. All right. So to take it that serious and take it that far is just way, way past, bad. Anyways, he has pitched so good this year that you get the benefit of the doubt when you blow your second game all year in early July. You don't really get killed, and you get the benefit of the doubt that you're confident he'll be fine. And he did get a save on Wednesday night, so, it kind of just was just one of those blimps. Thank God, though, that play was overturned. So, like I said, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, bases loaded, 6-4 lead, I think it was, or 2-run lead, whatever the score was. A double into right center ties the game automatically. The Rockies try to send the go-ahead run home. Hunter Goodman slides into home plate. It actually looked like in real time he got around the tag, and the key is that the home plate umpire actually called him safe. Now, when they went to replay, it was one of those very classic replay situations where you're like, it looks like he's out, but as always, it kind of depends on when there is a tiny bit of gray area. It always depends on like what was the call on the field, because it always just comes back to, well, can we really overturn this because there's a little bit of gray area? So I was like, oh, there is no doubt this is not getting overturned, although he kind of does look out. Hunter Goodman dove in head first, kind of gave one of those, not really a swim move, but kind of pulled his hand back. And so rushing, it kind of looked like to the naked eye that he, missed the tag and that Goodman got his hand in. But then when you saw on the replay, it looked like rushing tagged Goodman's other hand, so his left hand that he wasn't pulling away, before Goodman got his other hand in there. So it did look like he was out. Shockingly, the umpires overturned the call. New York overturns the call with the replay. So the Dodgers get a huge, whatever the word is, they just get very lucky that was actually overturned. All right, so we go into extra innings. Bottom of the ninth, Max Muncy with a tie game gets a leadoff single. Tommy Edman bunts him over, which the Dodgers don't technically do a lot. And I always see on, X nowadays, everybody loves to be, criticizing the manager or whatever, the team's decisions. Obviously, me being an analytical person, I don't really love bunting. I think that you should swing most cases, but I'm not fully against bunting. And I do think like an opportunity like there, you get the leadoff runner on. Tommy Edman can handle the bunt. Nothing wrong with bunting him over. I had no issue with that. He bunts him over. So you got the winning run on second base with one out. Dalton Rushing strikes out. So now you got two outs. Pages comes up after an intentional walk to Ohtani. So still two outs. Andy Pages comes up in a horrible at-bat. He takes three fastballs right down the middle. First one was a little bit up and out. Caught the strike zone, strike one. And I think the next two pitches were both called balls by the umpire and then immediately challenged by the catcher and overturned. And it was just like Pages was like not ready for the at-bat. He just took three heaters right down the middle. So that is all she wrote for the ninth. We go to the 10th inning. Same situation. The Rockies bunt the ghost runner over to third base. So it's now one out. Go-ahead run is on third base. You got Edgardo Henriquez on the mound with Jake McCarthy at the plate. Okay, he does not strike out a lot. Enriquez is not a massive swing and miss pitcher, but he does get some, he's got good stuff, and we know how good he's pitched as of late. Obviously, in this situation, you don't want to overdo it, but to a certain extent, you are going for the strikeout because you got less than 2 outs. So a ball in play, a sac fly gives the Rockies the lead. So in this at bat, Henriquez buries a couple of beautiful cutters in on the hands of McCarthy to get a swing and miss. Both of them were actually not even strikes. So in this sequence, I believe he went cutter to get a swing and a miss, and then after every swing and a miss, Dalton Rushing went with a slider the following pitch. So it was cutter to get the swing and a miss. Then he went a slider in the dirt. Then he went back to the cutter to get a swing and a miss. Then he went to a slider. Then he got a foul ball. And in my mind, I was thinking along with Rushing, and I'm thinking, you got to go to that cutter because McCarthy is trying to catch up to 102. So when he sees that cutter kind of middle in, he's trying to get the bat head out in front to, beat that ball, that 100 miles an hour, to get that ball in play. And then, that cutter breaks in on his hands, and then he has no way to stop his momentum, and he, gets a swing and a miss, and you're close to getting out of that, to getting that strikeout and getting one step closer to getting out of that inning without allowing a run. Whatever reason, Rushing decided to go with the slider again. He left the pitch up. McCarthy puts the ball in play, ground ball to Freddie Freeman, who made a nice play, fields the ball on the run, steps on first, and then throws home. But it was obviously too late, and the ghost runner, I think it was Carrig, was safe. And I'll get into that because that was when the benches cleared. So, but I'll talk about that in a sec. So I just thought it was a little bit of poor pitch calling there from Rushing. Probably should have stuck with that cutter. Then, now the Dodgers are, of course, down 1 run. We go to the 10th inning. Freddie Freeman, he moves the ghost runner over to third base with an RBI ground out. So you got 1 out. Mookie Betts at the plate. This is a good opportunity and a good guy to have at the plate because Mookie doesn't strike out and tends to put the ball in play. The only thing is that his last couple games he has cooled off from his hot stretch, and he has been popping the ball up a lot, which Mookie does tend to do. So I was thinking this is the right guy to have at the plate in terms of putting the ball in play, but Mookie we cannot have a pop-up right here. He ends up getting that, single error that I mentioned. It was ruled an error. Line drive up the middle, right at Julian. He just missed it. He absolutely smoked the ball. Really should have been changed to a single. But anyways, the Dodgers tie the game. Kyle Tucker comes up right after that. He singles into the outfield to now get Mookie into scoring position. So it's first and second with one out. You have Teoscar Hernandez at the plate. The Rockies bring in a reliever. I'm blanking on his name. The right-hander who's kind of funky, side armor. He goes to a 3-0 count on Teoscar. And again, this is where you just got to have this baseball. You got to have this like next level of thinking. And I understand it's easier said than done. Like I was saying a second ago with rushing with the pitch calling, 3-0 count. Okay, you have Muncy on deck. If you get the walk here, which is likely given it's a 3-0 count, Jimmy Herget is the name, by the way, is the guy on the mound that I was blanking on. Teoscar swings away at a 3-0 pitch and hits a soft line drive back to the pitcher. It wasn't even like he smoked it. Okay, he hit a soft line drive back to the pitcher, who then doubles up the runner at first base, I think it was, to get out of the inning. So you're like one pitch away from having the bases loaded set up with one out to now the inning is over. And again, I know that it's one of those things where if Teoscar smokes one into the gap on a 3-0 count where he got a pitch right down the middle, where he looks like a genius because he swung away. But that's where you got to use your brain. First of all, the pitch wasn't even a good pitch. He got a barreling sinker in on his hands. That's why he got jammed or hit it off the end of the bat back to the pitcher. But that's where you got to use your brain and be like, this guy just came out of the bullpen. He obviously wasn't the command wasn't great right away. He runs it to a 3-0 count. You really should take until you get 2 strikes in that opportunity. Maybe they wouldn't think that. Maybe you take till you just get a strike and then you're ready to swing. But you got to understand the situation. Max Muncy's on deck there. You can't just swing away right there and double up and I understand it's to some extent poor luck, but the ball wasn't even hit that hard. If it got past the pitcher, it probably would have been a double play anyways. So again, poor execution and poor baseball IQ right there from the Dodgers. All right, which the Dodgers don't do, which they don't tend to do a lot. So I just want to say that they are a very smart team, but still some mental lapses in this series. After that, shout out to Henriquez because he gets out of the top of the 11th. He gets a double play, and it was actually hit back to him. If you guys famously remember last year, do you guys remember when he fielded that ball? This was against the Twins in July. He fielded a comebacker and threw the ball to first base and literally threw it into the right field corner. So as soon as this ball was hit back at him, I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know. And he, calmly threw it to Mookie Betts and turned a double play, got out of the inning. So shout out to him. Then we go into the 9th inning. Dalton Rushing, of course, who we've talked about a lot already. After Tommy Edman gets another sac bunt down to get the winning run into scoring position, Dalton Rushing comes up with the winning run on base, and he hits a walk-off single to end the game. Very eventful game for Dalton Rushing. He had 3 hits. The walk-off, he had a big strikeout in the 9th, and then we know the bases, the benches clearing moment, which wasn't really benches clearing, but the benches did kind of clear. This was one of those instances where, Rushing is a guy who nowadays everybody loves to talk about him on social media. Head case, crazy, causes all this commotion and all these controversy. This was actually a case where I believe it was not Rushing's fault at all. So in that play where McCarthy hit the ground ball to first, Freddie Freeman throws home. The throw was too late and he's safe at home plate. It was Carrig who was the runner. It was one of those very regular plays at the plate. He beats the throw. A little bit of contact at the plate. No collision or anything like that. But just, he slid in, made contact with Rushing. Not even like anybody was injured. Just very classic play at the plate. But it was one of those where there was a second where it was possible that the runner missed the plate and Rushing missed the tag. So Rushing, you could tell what happened was when the play was over and he's obviously safe, Rushing was facing the dugout. I think this is what happened from my eyes. Somebody must have signaled to him, hey, tag him again just in case. And he reaches back to tag the guy. The guy Carrig took he got upset by that, by Rushing tag, and Rushing didn't tag him hard, push him over, nothing like that. He just gave another tag. Carrig took exception to that and got upset and said something to Rushing. Obviously, if you know anything about Rushing, he ain't you know what. He's not going to back down. So he says something back to Carrig, probably just says, what'd you say to me? I'm just trying to tag you, whatever. And then I think you could even see Carrick was saying to him, I didn't even say anything to you. I wasn't talking to you. I think he clearly was. I think he got upset that the guy tagged him again, and he got upset by that. Anyways, a little bit of a misunderstanding, and it was nothing serious. But I think that was an instance where it actually wasn't even Rushing's fault. He was just tagging him again to make sure. Anyways, regardless of all that, the Dodgers do sneak out of there with a win. Dalton Rushing had 3 hits. Shohei Ohtani had 3 hits, including a home run. And then Kyle Tucker, he also had 3 hits. So that's great. Overall, Dodgers get the win, which is what matters. A little bit of a sloppy game. Wouldn't have liked to see the blown save. And it is actually the first extra inning game for the Dodgers all year, which is just funny how baseball works. It was a couple days ago before this that I saw the Dodgers had yet to play an extra inning game this year, and it was getting close to tying the longest stretch to begin a season without playing an extra inning game in their history. So, of course, naturally, as soon as you see that stat, they play an extra inning game. So, overall, I spent way too much time on that first game, almost 30 minutes. Let's go to Game 2. Justin Robleski is on the mound Tuesday night versus the veteran right-hander Michael Lorenzen. All right, Shohei Ohtani starts this game in the bottom of the first with his 20th home run of the year, his 300th career home run, so congratulations to him, just like Mookie Betts a couple weeks ago, 300 career home runs. Dodgers have a 1-0 lead all the way until the bottom of the 5th inning. Bases loaded walk to Andy Pages makes it 2-0. Top of the 6th inning, though, Jake McCarthy, another RBI ground out like in Game 1. That brings in Tyler Freeman to make it a 2-1 game. Dodgers have the lead going into the 6th inning thanks to an RBI single from Alex Freeland, so it's 3-1 going into the 8th. But this is where some chaos ensues. So Tyler Freeman reaches on a fielding error. Fielder's choice / fielding error from Miguel Rojas. That makes it a 3-2 game. I think this was on the play that was a base hit up the middle. It got off the glove of Miguel Rojas. And then, right after that, Jake McCarthy, sack bunt. They get the out at first base. The trail runner from first is trying to go first to third because third base isn't being covered. Freeland throws the ball to Miguel Rojas on the run. It gets away from Rojas. The run comes in to score. 2 runs come in to score. Rockies take the lead, and they actually win by a score of 4-3. So that error leads to the Dodgers losing. They were unable to come back and rally in the 9th inning. Jordan Romano gets the save. Dodgers lose by a score of 4-3. Michael Lorenzen pitched 6 innings, and he pitched pretty solid against the Dodgers. Justin Robleski goes 7. Will Klein for 1/3 of an inning. Jack Dreyer for 2/3, and then Evan Phillips actually came in and pitched that 9th inning, and we're going to talk about Evan Phillips and how he looked in a second. So let's quickly talk about Robleski. All right, he goes 7 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. So he continues to increase the strikeouts. He didn't allow any home runs. He lowers his ERA to 2.69. Another very, very good start from Justin Robleski. Another just phenomenal start, honestly, proving to be arguably the biggest all-star snub of everybody in the All-Star game this year. Hopefully, a couple more injury roster updates. He can get he's got a chance to get picked, but he hasn't yet, even with some other guys being picked as injury reserves. It's going to be difficult for him to get it at this point, but I remain hopeful, especially with guys like Ohtani's not going to pitch in the All-Star game. I don't think Yamamoto will either because he is going to pitch on Saturday, so he won't pitch either. So hopefully they will get Robleski in there, but we'll see. All right, so let me give you Robleski's. Let me give you some stats that he had. He had 13 whiffs in the game, 6 on his four-seamer, 5 on the slider. He even got 1 on his sinker and 1 on his changeup, so he kind of continues that four-seam slider combination. The fastball velocity continues to increase. All right, so before I get to that, 2.69 ERA is 11th best in baseball. All right, like I said, the velocity and the strikeout rate continue to increase for Robleski, and that is why I'm more and more a believer that Robleski can actually sustain this, to some extent. Obviously, we're into July now. We're basically through an entire first half. So Robleski might be saying, hey, haven't I proven enough at this point? So his first 9 games of the year, he had a 15.3% whiff rate with a 13.7% strikeout rate. Both are not very great. In his last 7 games since those first 9, 24.4% whiff rate, so a 10% increase on whiff rate, a 24.4% strikeout rate, so more than a 10% increase in the strikeout rate. And his first 9 games of the year, His four-seam fastball averaged 93.7 miles an hour. It had a 16.1% whiff rate, and it had a 206 batting average against. In the 7 games since, it is averaging 95.2, so almost up a mile and a half, basically. It has a 29.8% whiff rate, so well more than a 10% increase on the whiff rate on that heater, and a 145 batting average against, so more than 50-point decrease in the batting average. So Wrobleski is pitched much better, even though he's never really had a dip in like the ERA, but it actually shows that the last 7 games, the last couple months, maybe these things are more sustainable about Wrobleski, and maybe we'll look up at the end of the year and he'll have more of a normal whiff rate, strikeout rate, and all that kind of stuff. So, shout out to Wrobleski because he is one of the bigger stories of the Dodgers this year. All right, and then before we get to all the other madness that took place at the end of the game, Ohtani, he hit his 300th home run. Since May 1st, his slugging percentage is .556, which is 9th best in baseball. He just turned 32 years old the other day, so shout out to him. Happy birthday. He is now 32 years old. Will he have a shot at 500 home runs or 600 home runs? Because he's at 300 now. I would imagine 400, will be done pretty, not easily, but I mean, we'll see, because right now he's at 20 home runs, so he's kind of on pace to hit like 38 home runs or something like that, which is definitely a decrease from where he's been at the 2 previous years where he's hit over 50 home runs. So if this continues the next couple years, it'll be a little bit harder for him. It won't take like 2 years. He hit his 200th home run, career home run as in a Dodger uniform 2 years ago. So it's only taken him basically 2 years to hit 100 more home runs. If he stays at this rate, it obviously will take him more like 3 years. But if he can get back to in the next couple of years to hitting 40, 50 home runs, then, probably sometime in 2028 is where you'll see him get to 400 home runs. I don't think 600 home runs is in the realm of possibility. That would be 300 more home runs, and he's at 32 years old. We'll see what happens with Shohei. I believe he's like smack dab in the middle of his prime. Like, he is in the middle of being peak Shohei Ohtani. When we look back to his career in 10 years as a Hall of Famer, I think we'll look back at, these years, 2023 to like 2028. We'll look at those years as like prime best Shohei Ohtani. And so it'll kind of be, it's yet to see like how his career will play out. He's still on the younger side, where it's kind of hard to see, like, is he going to be like a Freddie Freeman, and is he going to age well into his late 30s, or is he going to have like a drop-off? He's obviously a guy who takes good care of his body, but he's obviously, the pitching and hitting, like, how it's yet to see how all that's going to play out throughout his career. Like, I think he's even said in articles before, like, he knows that he doesn't have a bunch of seasons left when it comes to doing full-time two-way stuff because of how much of a wear and tear. So I don't know how many more years we'll see of him, like the full-time two-way stuff. There'll probably will be years where I don't know if he'll ever have to pick one or the other, but you're going to see way less pitching or, whatever. So it's going to be an interesting career to see how it plays out, but I think 400 is definitely going to be possible, and I would probably bank that he will get to 500 by the time he's like, getting close to retire at some point. So just thought I'd mention that. The last couple things before we go to Game 3, the ugly error in that 8th inning. Okay, so bunt to Max Muncy, who gets the out at first base. The trail runner going to third base. All right, Freeland throws to Miggy Rowe on the run, and it gets away, allowing the go-ahead run to score. So it's a little, confusing to me. Maybe Freeland should have just held on to the ball, given the fact that Rojas is on the run. It is a difficult play. It did hit Miguel Rojas like in the glove, so he should have caught the ball. Just an ugly play overall, completely. And then something you don't really see a lot from the Dodgers, they don't play sloppy baseball. They should get the benefit of the doubt. I'll talk about that more at the end of the Game 3, but they usually do not lose games because of their defense. They have been a top 5 defensive team all year, so just a little bit of some sloppy play. I'd like to see them clean that up this weekend against the Diamondbacks. But on top of that, they also completely choked in the bottom of the 9th inning. And I don't usually say words like that often because I understand how hard the game is. Sometimes guys just execute their pitches and you don't get hits. But when you have first and second with nobody out and the top of your order coming up, meaning Shohei Ohtani, Andy Pages, Freddie Freeman, and you don't even get the tying run over 90 feet. You don't even tie the game up. That is a choke. All right. Shohei Ohtani broke his bat on a pop-up. Andy Pajes flew out to right weakly, and then Freddie Freeman struck out. And, yeah, just a bad loss overall when you combine the fact that they had opportunities to win the game, and then they kind of gave it away defensively. You saw that replay, I'm sure, of Dave Roberts. He was visibly upset after that play. Just a poor play offensively. And they are usually very defensively sound. Obviously, each infielder they have in the infield I've talked about are all plus defenders. So, it was a difficult play, but, it's just they should have came away with a win in this game. But, the Rockies did battle the Dodgers well throughout the series, and they are a much better team this year. They're not just a little pushover Rockies team, but yeah. So let's go to Game 3 of the series, which was yesterday, of course, Wednesday night. Roki Sasaki's on the mound versus rookie right-hander Gabriel Hughes. I think it's Hughes. But just his second appearance in the big leagues, I believe. All right, so he goes up against Sasaki. The Dodgers get on the board first. Wild pitch from Hughes. Gets away. Tommy Edman comes around to score. Then right after that, an RBI 2-out single from Kyle Tucker. We love to see that. Makes it a 3-0 game in the bottom of the first inning. But Kyle Karros, Eric Karros' son, who is in the broadcast booth while this is happening, he hits a home run to left field off of Roki Sasaki. Isn't that just cool? I know that they talk about it on the broadcast, but imagine your dad is in the broadcast booth when you hit a home run against his former team. And then again, obviously, as a father, imagine your own son is hitting a home run for you in front of you, and you're on the broadcast. That's just so crazy to me. And Kyle Karros is kind of destroying the Dodgers in his young career. He has played nice as of late, so shout out to him because he wasn't really much of a top prospect, but he has some good numbers the last couple months. Edward Julian, the former Minnesota Twin, makes it a 2-3 game. Dodgers lead 3-2. Another home run off of Sasaki. Mickey Moniak in the third inning ties the game thanks to a sac fly. Then, scoreless game all the way until the eighth. Not scoreless, but no more runs all the way until the eighth inning, where Mookie Betts, an RBI single into center field, makes it 4-3. And the Dodgers actually win by a score of 4-3. So Mookie gets the game-winning hit. Roki Sasaki for 6, Jack Dreyer for 1, Vesia for 2/3 of an inning, Edgardo Henriquez for 1/3, and then Tanner Scott came in and redeemed himself with that save. He goes the 1 inning, and Dodgers get the win. They get out of there with the series win. They get their 61st win of the season, and that's actually the most wins before the All-Star break since 2017, which was a very magical regular season for the Dodgers. And we'll see what they can do the final couple days of the season. Like I told you guys my last podcast, the most wins before the All-Star break in baseball history is the Red Sox with 66. If they could sweep the Diamondbacks, get to 64, I believe that would put them second all-time behind the Rockies, because I think after the Red Sox, the most all-time is 63. So we'll see what they can do. I'm hopeful for them to make some history in terms of the first half. But let's talk about Sasaki. He goes 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Did allow 2 home runs. So it was a very, how do I word it, Sasaki funky start. One of those starts where, it was not at all a great start, but it was definitely not a bad start. Obviously, in the beginning of the game, it felt very bad given the fact that he gave up the 3 earned runs, 2 home runs, and you're thinking, here we go again with Sasaki. But he obviously stays in there, goes 6 innings pitched. He actually was very efficient through those 6 innings because he only threw 78 pitches. He actually could have went back out there for the 7th, but I'm sure that they wanted to end things on a high note. He just gets through 6 innings pitched with just 3 earned runs. He had 15 whiffs in the game. So overall, it actually ends up being a very solid start for Sasaki. He wasn't able to get accredited with the win, but 15 whiffs. He actually threw more splitters than fastballs, which he's not accustomed to, especially once Sasaki started to turn things around and get much better. He actually was relying a lot on his four-seam fastball. There were starts where it was way more fastball than splitter. So I do wonder if they've kind of delve into things and said, hey, let's try to, fastball splitter, maybe even a little bit more splitter. He threw 35 splitters, 33 four-seamers, and then he only threw 10 sliders in this game. All right, he had 10 whiffs on that splitter, which did look very good in this game, I will say. He also had 8 whiffs on the four-seamer, so that's great. More in line with what Sasaki was doing when he was successful. And then he had 9 whiffs on the four-seamer. He had 6 on the fastball. And then he didn't have any on that slider. Did get a punch-out on that slider. But, he still has the big-time home run issue. Obviously, 2 of the 3 earned runs were on 2 home runs. He's 4th in home runs per 9 among all starting pitchers. So the most home runs per 9 innings, 4th most, I should say. But overall, a very solid start. He did get some pretty decent swing and miss. The velocity continues to look good. The splitter looked good. He was much more efficient. The command was much better. Only had 1 walk. This was closer to the very good Sasaki we saw a couple months ago. Especially like I said with that command and the swing and miss ticking up a little bit. Hopefully this start can push him into the right direction going into the All-Star break. This will be his last start before the All-Star break. He should take some time away, work on those mechanics, work on his mindset, all that stuff. Take this last start into the next half, the second half. And really what he's got to focus on is the fastball issues and the home runs. Because he's got the great splitter. I think he actually has a very good slider. I think he's proven that he's put those really, really bad command issues behind where it's like he has those innings where he can't find the strike zone. He hasn't dealt with any of that. It is the home runs and the fastball and occasional command. But, that's what he's got to focus on going into the second half. And I would love for him to be one of the biggest turnaround players in the second half that we talk about, in July and August and September. Okay. Last couple things. Mookie Betts, nice to see him get that game-winning hit. He had been cooling off a tad since his hot stretch. To me, it's not a big enough sample size to he's gone into a slump or anything. He still looks really good as of late. But since the start of that Padres series, just hasn't had as many hits. And there have been a little bit more of those weak fly balls to right center field. Still hitting the ball hard. So that's why I'm not too concerned. But when you start to see those weak fly balls the other way for Mookie, that's when his swing is a little bit out of whack. In that Padre series, there was more deep fly balls, which, if Mookie's hitting the ball in the air to center field, in the exit velocity is good and it just gets caught, that's one thing. When you really start to get worried is when you start to see those pop-ups to shallow right center, right field. We started to see a little bit more of that as this series developed. So, again, just like I said about Sasaki, would love to see him finish off this weekend strong against the Diamondbacks, and then overall take a very positive last month and a half into the second half and really put up some good numbers in the second half, and then we can finally see Mookie with some really good numbers overall for the year. And then we won't really have to break things down. We won't really have to break things down in terms of Mookie's season. He can just have an overall nice season. So we'll see how all that progresses. Evan Phillips, I also wanted to mention him. He didn't pitch in this game. It was after Tuesday night. Scoreless inning with 2 strikeouts. He actually touched 98.7 miles an hour. The hardest pitch he has thrown in his career. Would you have guessed that? He hasn't been anywhere close to that since the 2024 playoffs. All right. Could this be the best Dodgers bullpen that we've seen in recent time? All right. Now, it might not have the high-end potential that we saw with some bullpens in the past, like 2024, where they had a shutdown Michael Kopech, Blake Trinan, Alex Vesia, Evan Phillips. Shut down. I don't know that they'll have those high-end relievers, although they have a chance. But I do think that what they could have is more, a little bit more depth and consistency from the entirety of the pen. Because now, when you look at things, you got Tanner Scott and Vesia, who have been lethal. Edgardo Henriquez has taken his name into the high leverage, fold. Obviously, Evan Phillips, you think, is going to be thrown right into there. They're going to be careful with him, but I like how his stuff looked, and I think he's going to go right back to being a very solid reliever. Then you got guys like Will Klein, Jack Dreyer. Kyle Hurd has taken a little bit of a step back, but he still has very, very good strikeout numbers. And, to me, one of the few needs that the Dodgers potentially needed at the deadline is a right-handed reliever because of guys like Vesia and Scott and Dreyer. Well, now we have the emergence of Edgardo Henriquez. You add into the fold Evan Phillips. I didn't even mention Brock Stewart a second ago. Will Klein, Kyle Hurt. And at some point, you're going to get Edwin Diaz back. The way I'm thinking about it out loud, Edwin Diaz comes back, and if he looks anywhere close to how he has the last couple years, and really just Edwin Diaz of his career, if he comes back, man, and he is slated to be that closer, everybody moves down a notch, and then you got Scott and Vesia as your high leverage guys, preferably against left-handed hitters because they're left-handed, but you got two of the four high leverage guys being Scott and Vesia, and then Phillips, if he can get back to what he was. And then now with what we've seen from Edgardo Enriquez, you got Diaz and then those four as your like high leverage late inning guys. And then after that, you got Brock Stewart, you got Will Klein, you got Jack Dreyer. That is a scary potential bullpen. Just something I was thinking about. Evan Phillips looked great. The sinker up to 98. He was averaging 97.6 for the night. But like I said, multiple times touching 98. The sweeper looked good. Great stuff. I can't wait to see what he looks like going forward. I'm sure we'll see him a couple more times this weekend against the Diamondbacks. And then the last couple things, 3 errors in this series. There was the 2 in that 8th inning on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, actually, Max Muncy committed an error. Definitely uncommon from the Dodgers this year. They have been a top 5 defensive team all year. If you go look at team defensive numbers, defensive runs saved, the Dodgers are second to the Chicago Cubs in team defensive runs saved. Team defensive outs above average, they are third behind the Diamondbacks. And then fielding run value, they are fifth. All right, so they have been a top 5 defensive team all year. So they deserve the benefit of the doubt. That is very unlike them. A little bit of some sloppy play. But, of course, they are still able to get the series win, which is what matters the most. Would like to see them finish off this first half strong. I've said it before, the Dodgers, when they began to play poor last year, it began in early July. So it's something to keep an eye on, that they continue this good play. And they do have a very tough stretch coming up in the second half. Because if you haven't noticed, they play the Diamondbacks this weekend, and then in a week from that, when they take on the second half begins, they take on the Yankees in New York. Then they will play the Phillies in Philadelphia. Then they go back to New York to take on the Mets. Then after that, I think they go home and they play the Mariners, and then there's some other team. So I think they play the Red Sox at home too. They got a pretty daunting schedule coming up throughout July. So gotta continue to play good and take care of those good teams coming up. So to finish up, they will take on the Diamondbacks this weekend. Like I said, Shohei Ohtani will take the mound Friday night. Yamamoto will take the mound Saturday night, and then Emmett Sheehan will take the mound Sunday afternoon while the draft takes place, actually. So some fun stuff coming up with the All-Star break, home run derby. I would love to see someone, a Dodger, be in the home run derby. I don't think that we'll have anyone really. Obviously, Shohei's not going to do it, Freddie or Mookie. I wonder if there's a chance that like Max Muncy could do it. He's done it before, so that's why I don't think he would. But, he is an all-star voter, all-star starter. So wouldn't be shocked to see him in it. Maybe Andy Paz. I'd love to see someone. It's always fun when you can have a guy from the home team represent the home run derby. So we'll see if anything like that takes place. But as always, thank you guys so much for listening. You can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Turn on the notifications. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. And you can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. I thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you Sunday afternoon to recap the final series of the first half, the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Go Dodgers. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.